Hello and welcome to another video from the Fantasy Legion. I've got Sean with me.
It's great
Another
to be back.
player profile for you.
Yeah, love these.
This is an interesting one. He's going at ADP of 32.
Yeah.
Looked a real star in the making, but after a sort of a down year, an injury hit year, lack of a good quarterback. Juju Smith-Schuster, what do you make of him at 32?
Well, I think the price is just way too high for the player. This is the issue. We need to see Ben all the way back. We don't even know what kind of arm or shoulder or what kind of player Ben really is now, and we may not know until the season starts, if we're honest. So I've got huge concerns over Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, it's interesting because normally when a wide receiver does something really good, really high caliber, they're generally able to kind of be close to it again. They're able to perform. But you do get exceptions, and I'm just wondering if this is going to be one of the cases. I mean, did he get found out a lot in the second year? Was it a blip?
Because obviously Brown would have taken a lot of the attention before obviously he went a bit mad, went to the Raiders, started getting in hot air balloons and things. But Brown
said pretty much that as well. He pretty much said,
he did actually, didn't he? He turned on Juju. He actually, he was sort of having to go at everybody at the time.
And to kind of back his point up, I mean, a year later, I mean, it's one thing to do it. It's another thing to, it's one thing to do it. It's another thing to say it. Then it's another thing to repeat it. Juju struggled without that top-class receiver. And again, that's another thing that sometimes happens because some players need the other guy to take the attention off them so that they can, and that's not a... That's
exactly.
No disrespect.
They're playing against the second-best corner in the team. So
we all know what corners can do. I mean, look at the record of shutdown corner Reavers. Look at him. Look what he could do to players. Exactly, one season where none of those top guns got over 50 yards. I mean, that's what a good corner can do to you. It can shut you down. So
it's a lot harder being a wide receiver one than is sort of getting the coverage from the second.
Well, you get bumped on the line. You get bumped in the corner, or safety picks you up. It's really difficult. Your timings are all out.
Ben can really air it out. And to be fair to Juju, last year, if it could go wrong, it did go wrong, and picked up injuries. He had niggling injuries all year. I mean, Ben obviously he got injured, so the quarterback was someone different nearly every week, and they were really underwhelming.
My big concern.
I think there's a receiver I really like, a young receiver I really like on this team, and that's Deontay Johnson. So I think at the prices, I'll be drafting a few shares of him. I think because I think he looks a real player, and he's going to get the coverage from the second DB because Juju's going to take all the best corners. And Ben's got a big arm, so opportunities may arise that way. So
yeah, I don't disagree there. I think you're wise to pick the other guy out. I think we've seen enough of Pittsburgh every year frighten me. Every year we've had to make big bold predictions on them. Who's going to do well? Why they're going to bust? And they've been really good. But we can't continue on this trend of boom bust because that's what we are with them. Yeah. It's a really difficult team. I think they're in transition. And I think Ben's coming quickly towards the end of his career. And he may even be at the end. We don't know what his arms are.
If that elbow goes again, you've got to feel it's the end because that's his throwing arm. Is he really going to rehabilitate he's a bigger man anyway, but rehabilitating for another year?
Yeah, well, there was some good news for him. I mean, watching the programs about the injury, it's one of those sort of unusual, like baseball kind of injuries because of what he attempted to do when he was throwing the ball sidearm. And there's only one player in the NFL at the moment, I think, who can successfully throw the ball sidearm, and that's Patrick Mahomes really well. And the reason I believe that this is a completely different kind of situation, because every quarterback can throw sidearm, but it's not a good motion because when you put your arm in that motion to the side, you are exposing the shoulder, the elbow in an unusual way from a mechanical point of view. So any fall, any hit, you've got no absorption, and that's what happened to him. That's why it went, and it was a real freak. I think I look back at this, and that was the only time a quarterback suffered this injury in 20 odd years. So that's how freakish an injury it was. The long-term diagnosis is good for him because the kind of motion that he's going to need, Ben, doesn't suggest to me that this was career-ending in terms of what the injury is. I just think his age is the issue now, and it's just what it's like coming back after this hiatus. Maybe that's freshened him up. Maybe he knows this could be the end of the road and he wants to go out with a flurry.
I
all
mean,
those
he's
things are
that
good.
old. He's nearly half your age now. I mean, that
Indeed,
is
indeed. Yeah, it's like my adopted son. I never actually. No, I wouldn't have Ben Roethlisberger. No, sorry, son. No,
I wouldn't want to tell him
kind
for telling him off for coming in late. The size of that.
No, you can't. He's too big. He's too big. I'll just let him do what he wants.
Yeah.
That's been the issue at college, isn't it? That's one of the issues. He's been allowed to do what he wants.
That's another story, but you know.
It is. Anyway, the thing here is simply with Juju, I'm not sold at 32, and I think I would hard swerve, to be honest with you. There'll be plenty of people out there who will say, let's risk it. But it's still very high up the board to start taking those kind of risks.
He's talented, but he's got to prove it this year, isn't it? It's a big year for him, pivotal.
160.
He could be a top
fantasy
5 receiver. He could be.
160 fantasy points is what he's going to have to get to return that value.
But he could definitely have, in PPR, he could have 100 targets easily. He had that 2 years ago with Antonio Brown there.
Yeah, he could. But it is high risk, high reward. It depends on how you're building your team. I wouldn't want him as my number one wide receiver.
The QBs were that bad last year. The running backs were taking direct snaps. It was really strange. I mean, what was going on? But
well, let's compare the tape for a second here, because it's worth a pause for a moment on this guy. So if we take a player round, I think of this player's going slightly ahead of him, but not by much. Kenny Galladay, what's his current ADP out?
Well, the two I were going to give you, actually, the better examples that are going close to him. These are interesting ones. So you got Adam Thielen going one place above. Now he hasn't got any sort of competition. He has to get a lot of receptions, and you got DJ Moore just below him. So,
well, I must be honest. I prefer Thielen and DJ Moore by miles, and there's a couple of reasons. So let's just, like you say, I think you've highlighted Thielen's brilliantly. Let me just give a quick case for DJ Moore. Easiest schedule in the NFL for wide receivers against corners and safeties. No more needs to be said. That's it. For me, that makes him a no-brainer, really. If you were building a team a certain way and you can get DJ Moore in the third round, you've already loaded up a couple of running backs, that seems pretty safe to me. I think most people are going to look at you and go, huh? But when you think about the schedule, you're going to sit there and go, great. And if you look at the schedule through the playoff weeks, that looks pretty good too. So I'm kind of looking at it thinking, it's quite savvy. So I much prefer those two over our dear friend Juju Smith-Schuster, who massively worries me by a mountain mile. I would be very worried about what.
Yeah, but if you look at the upside, one's got Bridgewater thrown to him, and one's got Big Ben thrown to him.
Yeah. No, but that also sounds really weird. But just think of it for a minute. If ever a player could have a bounce back year, Bridgewater. I mean, look, you've got the easiest schedule for quarterback, wide receivers. The whole thing is mixed together here. Honestly, it's such a good schedule. So you look at that and you just think they could have a really interesting year. Like, even if it was from a normal football point of view, they ended up with a 9-7 record or something. But from fantasy point of view, it could be gold dust. Teddy Bridgewater could have an amazing year, and it might be like come out of the pack.
Yeah, so he could dump it off to McCaffrey all year. That's why.
Yeah, well, it could be really cheap. Really, really cheap.
I mean, obviously you've got to factor in with DJ Moore though. You've got Robbie Anderson there now. You've got Curtis Samuel as well. 2 other players. I mean, Robbie Anderson is a wide receiver one, potentially. Not actually, but potentially. He was decent for the Jets. He just could never stay healthy.
Yeah, I just think TJ Moore is really well set up to do well this year. I think Anderson can have a role too. He's always gets a role. He's always undervalued. In fact, he's undervalued again this year.
Oh, he's horribly undervalued, yeah.
I like him again. He's another one. If I've got to make a choice, I'll take him later every time.
I mean, they can't be worse than the Jets, can they? The Jets stink every year. I mean,
that's true. So, yeah, for very simple, Juju Smith-Schuster for me is a hard pass, and it's simply down to I don't think he's going to replicate his form, to be honest with you, that he had 2 years ago. I just think they need another wide receiver there, and then I would feel more comfortable. They don't have it.
Yeah, I'm not that comfortable taking him that high, but I can certainly see it. The upside's there for me more than it is for DJ Moore, and a lot of people love DJ Moore, so he'll probably get overdrafted anyway. So
may well do. Look, I mean, I get it. If you've already got 2 quality running backs and you're taking your first wide receiver and you're shooting for the moon and you want to take one risk in your first 5 key picks, I can get it. I understand that you're going for it all and you want to explode out the gates. Okay, if it works, you're off and flying. Well, I do think it could be your Achilles heel and then you're chasing, and that's another horrible thing. Whereas if you've got a steady player...
It is a bit of a risky to put a high
imagining
draft pick on
horrible I just wonder if he's going to become very boom or bust, Juju Smith-Schuster. When he booms, it's great, but when he busts, it's horrible, and you just don't know when to play him. And those players really aggravate me from a fantasy point of view. I hate them.
Draft Deontay Johnson instead. That's my advice. But there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for your thoughts, Sean. I don't think either of us are overly keen on drafting there. I think he's got talent, but
he's
it's a watching brief for me.
I need to see more.
Okay. If you've enjoyed that, please give it a thumbs up. Let us know what you think about Juju. Are you happy to take him at 32? Subscribe for more. We've got plenty more on the way, and we'll see you on the next one.